This week on Talking Pictures with Neil Rosen, we'll look at the new origin story of the famed villainess Cruella, starring Emma Stone. The Billy Crystal Tiffany Haddish dramedy, Here Today. The mother-daughter addiction drama, 4 Good Days, with Mila Kunis and Glenn Close. And a new documentary about the beginnings of the iconic TV series Sesame Street. We've got all that and many more movie picks coming up. I'm Neil Rosen. Welcome to Talking Pictures. It's our monthly Critic Roundtable show where we debate what's worth watching and what's not when it comes to new releases, hidden gems, and Hollywood classics. So along with my panel, who are all still streaming from home, we have plenty of movies and TV series for you to either watch at home or in movie theaters, which are finally opening up. Joining me are Bill McCuddy from Gold Derby. Hey, Bill.
Neil, I have nothing to say at this point.
Perry Nemiroff from Collider. Hey, Perry.
Hello there. Happy to be back.
Happy to have you. And returning to the show, our friend Mike Sargent from WBAI. Hi, Mike.
Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper, my friend. And let's start out with a look at several new films that are available either in theaters, on demand, or on streaming services, beginning with Cruella, starring Emma Stone and Emma Thompson. Let's take a look at a clip.
Overlight. Get her.
Bill, tell us all about Cruella.
Well, as we know from the title, this is basically the origin story of Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians. We're looking at the star Emma Thompson as the evil boss and nemesis to Emma Stone. So it's Cruella with 2 L's and 2 Emmas. Craig Gillespie from I, Tonya and Lars and the Real Girl directs here. The story takes place in 70s London during the punk movement, and it's got a soundtrack from that era that sort of moves a lot of the slower scenes along. It has a great supporting cast in Joel Fry, Mark Strong, and Paul Walter Hauser. But at 2 hours and 15 minutes, you may think this is Cruella and Unusual Punishment. It's basically an amped up Project One runway episode. The stakes aren't as big as I'd like in a movie. There's no love interest. Other than that, there's a lot of style here, like a lot of the things that Emma Stone designs, but not a lot of substance.
So wrong, Bill, and I'll chime in a minute, but Perry, we're all shaking our heads. You're so off base here, McCuddy.
Why does stakes equal love interest? I'm very curious to know about that.
It seems like a hole in the fabric.
I found that very refreshing that wasn't necessarily a part of this story. And I absolutely loved it. And I'm shocked that I loved it because ever since they announced this, I'm like, well, how do you do a prequel story about this classic Disney villain? Are you going to kind of water the character down to make her super likable? They didn't do that. And no, not really. They give her lots of depth and they totally justify why she wound up in the place that we see her in the animated classic. But on top of that, as someone who is super sensitive when it comes to anything bad happening to animals, I was very curious to see how they handled that in this movie. So if anybody out there has that same fear, they work that really well here and they get away with what they do. But then on top of that, the fashion in this movie blew my mind, and I do not pretty much ever care about fashion all that much. So I was shocked that part really caught me, and so did the fantastic soundtrack. And I just thought that Emma Stone was absolutely radiant in the role. I kind of love Cruella.
Mike?
Well, I kind of didn't love Cruella. I enjoyed it. I sat there wondering about an hour and a half in, like, why does Cruella need an origin story? Like, why do we need to know this story? I enjoyed the costumes like you, Perry. I thought the performances were fun. Some of the set design is really nice. There's lots of scenes with dogs and I love animals too. But after a while, I felt like, okay, the film sort of meanders and where's it going to go and why? I enjoyed it, but I didn't feel that it does have any real reason to exist other than to milk the catalog.
Oh man, Bill and Mike, you're so off. I'm so with you, Perry. This was great, and what a pleasant, unexpected surprise. I mean, I was like with you. It's like, how are they going to do this? And I mean, this is not what you'd expect from Disney. It's dark, it's twisted. It has even though it's not Tim Burton, it has that Tim Burton-esque kind of feel to it. The set design is great. The musical soundtrack's phenomenal, as opposed to what you said, Bill, about, it's Greg Slosing. I think it pilots the thing. I mean, you've got The Clash and ELO and the title track from the movie Car Wash and all these songs.
But you wouldn't have much of a movie without the music, you're saying?
No, I'm saying that the whole Emma Stone's great. Emma Thompson is great. I was right from the get-go. I was sucked in. There's twists and turns that I was really enjoying. I didn't care about the long running time. I thought that this was just so well done. The writing is great. The direction is great. The acting is great. And, who knew that this movie could come at it? I mean, Disney's taking one of their time-honored G-rated classics and making this dark, twisted thing. And they do it superbly. I loved it. Moving on. Mike, tell us about a movie called 4 Good Days.
4 Good Days is a new movie directed by Rodrigo Garcia. It's based on an article, and it's about a young addict who's got to stay clean and tries to move in with her mother. She's got to have 4 good days, and then she'll be okay. And it stars Mila Kunis, and Glenn Close plays the mother, and Stephen Root plays the husband and father or stepfather in this movie. This movie is really buoyed by the performances. It starts out really good, I think, and it really kind of hits notes maybe you haven't seen, but I do feel it kind of becomes a little after school specialish, and it's only elevated by the performances. It's worth seeing, but nothing that you have to rush to your living room to watch.
Perry?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in agreement with you there. I thought it was totally fine. It is a little heavy-handed and on the nose, but when you've got two people like Mila Kunis and Glenn Close in the lead roles, you're bound to spark somewhat of a connection to the characters, and you definitely do watching the movie, but it is a film with a whole bunch of melodramatic moments, and I wouldn't say it's all that insightful, which I think was probably the most disappointing element of the movie to me.
Bill?
Well, the insightful thing is that Mila Kunis is a pretty good actress in this thing. That was a surprise to me. I haven't seen her do this well. On the other hand, I didn't think it was going to be this soon after the Oscars when we'd see a Glenn Close performance she won't win another award for. I can say to skip this unless you're a Kunis fan.
Listen, I don't know who would want to watch this. It is torturous to sit through. It's a worthy subject matter, but it's been done to such better effect in dozens of other movies that have handled this. It's cliched. Props to Mila Kunis for de-glamorizing herself and playing this, junkie, which I think she does really well. And I think Glenn Close does a good job, but it's an actor's showcase. But this is just not carried out. The whole thing is just not executed to good effect. Worthy subject. It just deserves a better movie. Those Who Wish Me Dead is an action thriller starring Angelina Jolie, who's running from a raging forest fire and some bad guys. Let's take a look.
Listen to me. Take a deep breath, hold it, and lay back. Watch what I do.
Perry, tell us about Those Who Wish Me Dead.
So this is Taylor Sheridan's second feature film as director after Wind River. It's a book to film adaptation that focuses on what happens when this young boy named Connor is targeted by those killers Neil mentioned, and he has to find safety in the Montana wilderness. And that's where he runs into Angelina Jolie's character, Hannah, who is a smoke jumper, and she's stationed at a fire watchtower there. I know this is a really cliche thing to say right now, but this movie had me on the edge of my seat from start to finish. The intensity and suspense is really there and so strong and coming at you from so many different angles. I've already name dropped Finn Little, who is phenomenal in the film, and Jolie, who is quite good as well. But I'd probably call the MVP of Those Who Wish Me Dead Medina Sanghor, who plays John Bernthal's pregnant wife in the movie, and she is at the center of what I think is probably the best sequence in the entire film. But again, I must stress that everyone is quite good. And I am shocked how big the ensemble is and how full all the characters feel.
Mike, you're nodding your head.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, it felt like a novel because all the characters, minor characters, were so well drawn, and you got it right. That scene with her, like I don't want to give it away, but you've never met a character like this in a movie ever before. She stole it completely from me. I enjoyed the film. I also think it's interesting that Sheridan, who also directed like 9 episodes of Yellowstone in Montana, is in love with all this outdoor stuff. So this is definitely in his wheelhouse.
Bill?
Well, Mike mentioned you've never seen anything like this. You've also never seen a forest ranger that looks like Angelina Jolie. But I enjoyed this movie too, and I have to give a shout out to the special effects because that forest fire is unbelievable. So I gotta say, Jolie never hotter. You shouldn't like this movie, but it's really, really entertaining. So I highly recommend it.
I liked it too. And look, if you want to pick this apart, there's a lot of holes in the plot. I mean, something happens in the beginning of the movie and they never really explain why these two guys are so bent on, killing all these people. And Tyler Perry shows up for like, I don't know, a nanosecond, but it doesn't really matter. These two bad guys are so ruthless and horrible that you really root against these guys. And Jolie and crew are, you got good people being chased by bad people. The special effects are terrific. It's a great ride, and I really enjoyed the thing, the whole way through. Highly recommended. Here Today is the name of a new movie starring Billy Crystal and Tiffany Haddish. And Bill McCuddy, why don't you tell us all about it?
Well, as you mentioned, Billy Crystal stars as an aging comedy writer who meets Tiffany Haddish at a lunch after she bids for him at an auction, and she has no idea who he is. They form a friendship that seems unlikely, and yet I gotta tell you, the big surprise for me here is that Tiffany Haddish, for one time in her career, is underplaying a role, and she's very, very effective here. A lot of people will find this kind of syrupy. He's dealing with dementia. He worked on it and works on a show very much like Saturday Night Live. This was written by Crystal and Ellen Zweibel, who are both veterans of SNL, so they know the territory. And I think if you like them, you'll like this. Otherwise, you may find it treachy and unwatchable.
Mike?
Sort of like some episodes of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. The skits that they do in this particular movie are not very good. And I'm going, very realistic, just like SNL. Mike?
Well, I think this could be called hokey today because I thought that this movie, not quite as bad as Mr. Saturday Night, which I thought was pretty bad.
That's Neil Rosen's favorite movie.
I love that movie, Mike. You're so wrong on that.
I'm sorry. I love you, Neil, but no. Now, that being said, a cast that includes Billy Crystal, Tiffany Haddish, you just got to watch just to see what they do on screen. And Bill's right. If you do like these characters, you'll stay with the film, even through the things that are, syrupy and hokey. And, it's a sweet movie with a heavy helping of corn.
Perry?
Yeah, I think I'm in line with you guys. I think the movie was okay overall, and it's okay because of that relationship between Crystal and Haddish's character. They have an undeniable charm, and they have so much chemistry together that it kind of buoys the rest of the stuff that doesn't work. And when I pinpoint what doesn't work, I had an especially hard time watching the material that takes place on his show, because when you have a character who works for a sketch comedy show and the sketches are that bad, it makes it a little, like, I guess borderline painful to watch. I feel bad saying that, but I was cringing every time one of those scenes came up.
We should also, let me just also say, because I should have, that these two don't get together. So if you're worried that it's got kind of a Woody Allen slant or some kind of creepy thing happening, no, they're friends, and so that shouldn't be a reason not to watch it. Maybe you'll find other reasons not to like it.
First of all, I like this movie a lot more than you three. This is not the intellectual look with the Twilight Zone kind of ending that the father had looking at this horrible disease of dementia. It's a completely different way in that Crystal takes with Zweibel. But, I think it's an interesting take. And I think Tiffany Haddish and Billy Crystal have great chemistry together. And I think they elevate the material. And I really enjoyed the film. You see this guy, as opposed to Hopkins, if you want to compare this to the father, you see this guy struggling to keep his job and following the same route to work every day. And, and there's moments of poignancy in this, and there's moments of comedy in this as well. And I recommend the film. Okay, let's take a look at a new documentary called Street Gang, How We Got to Sesame Street. Mike?
This is probably one of the most heartfelt documentaries you'll see all year. Similar to I Am Big Bird, the Carol Spinney story, and Being Elmo, A Puppeteer's Journey, we get a chance to see actually how Sesame Street was created, some iconic moments from it. And there's just so many things about this that this literally could have been, in my opinion, a series. Sesame Street's about to enter into its 50th season, which is hard to believe. But this is probably one of the best documentaries I've seen in about 6-7 years. It really, not only does it remind you of things from your childhood, because I'm sure every child saw Sesame Street, but it really, really shows what a genius Jim Henson was.
Bill?
I love this, and I suggest you have it with a cookie. And what's not to like? It's a great story, well told. A lot of stuff you didn't know about the origin, and highly recommend it.
Perry?
I think that might be the best Bill card we've ever seen and heard. I liked this one quite a bit too. It's, it's hard not to want to know more about a show that changed so many lives out there. So I really did enjoy getting that behind the scenes look. And structurally with the documentary, the moment that I think really brought it all together for me was a line that they say at the end about how they wish they could have made an episode about the behind the scenes of it all. And then in that moment, it was like the fact that this all exists and we have it now made it feel even more special than it already did as I was watching it. So highly recommend this one.
Yeah, highly recommended. And, all this footage from 50 years ago, even before, they went into production and started, doing episodes, they didn't know what they were doing. They reinvented the wheel. And I found it fascinating that they were going to decide to market this show to kids the way television advertisers would, we're going to market the alphabet and numbers the way, advertisers would market kids to buying products and candy and stuff like that. And I thought that was really interesting. And they hire educators and TV producers and comedy writers, to make this thing really, now we know what Sesame Street is, but, at the time, nobody knew what they were doing. And they created this masterpiece, iconic show. Really well done. I love the relationship between Frank Oz and Jim Henson. I thought that was interesting, playing Bert and Ernie. And, great footage, archival footage, and interviews, present day interviews, and the people behind the scenes. Again, phenomenal documentary about an iconic program.
Give us the laptop. Give us the laptop. Give us the laptop. Give us the laptop.
Everything with the pouch is alive!
Delicate, fluff, and fold. Also, pesto. When we are finished with you, there will be no leftovers.
Oh, I thought that kill code thing would take him out.
Yeah, but it's only at 12%.
Would you like a soda? Just kidding.
That was a clip from the new movie, The Mitchells versus the Machines. It happens to be Perry Nemiroff's personal choice as we go around the panel with our critics' picks of the month. Perry.
This one is streaming on Netflix. It was produced by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who, of course, recently produced Academy Award-winning Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And now they've got another huge winner here. The movie focuses on a young girl, Katie Mitchell, and she's about to go off to college. But Katie and her dad are not really on the best terms. So before she leaves, he opts to get rid of her plane ticket and instead commit the family to road tripping her to college. Along the way, robots try to take over the world, and it's up to the Mitchells to stop them. I know it's still kind of early in the year, but it feels safe to say this because Mitchells versus the Machine feels so uniquely special to me. This is bound to be one of the best animated features of the entire year. There's no doubt in my mind on the matter. It is just so incredibly funny, like truly laugh out loud funny. sweet, sincere. It has so much to say about the way we incorporate technology in our lives that feels very true to life, which I was so impressed by. The animation is vibrant and detailed. I could go on and on about how much I adored this movie. Clearly, I cannot recommend it enough. I think this is going to be a big one next award season, or at least I am hoping, because it deserves it.
Mike?
I agree with Perry completely. I think this is probably one of the most original animated films I've ever seen. I love the fact that it has what seems to be two completely disparate stories, robots taking over, father wanting to take his daughter to college to rebond with her, and they mesh it together. I thought this was enormously enjoyable.
Mike, what's your pick this month?
My pick is a TV series called Them. This is not a perfect series, but it's about a Black family that moves into an all-white Los Angeles neighborhood in the 50s, where they are faced with malevolent forces that are supernatural and the forces of racism by their white neighbors. This is a subject that is not really covered much in film or television, just what happens. We've all heard of white flight, but we really haven't seen it illustrated. I, at first, didn't understand why he wanted to mix horror with something that is historically accurate. But once you see the film, the reality for me was the horror was kind of a relief from what they were really experiencing. I don't know that this completely works, but I have to say it's one of the most unique experiences you will actually ever have watching a television show.
Perry?
Mike, you make me excited to watch more. I missed this one when it first came out, but because you picked it, I finally started a binge I intended on doing. And so far, I'm very much digging it. The atmosphere in this show is just so utterly all-consuming. And I mean, you just feel that kind of palpable sense of building dread. So given where I am in the series right now, it sounds like that's going to have an explosive quality as I get further into it.
Bill, I know what your pick is, and if you didn't pick it, I would have picked it. That's how much I love it. But tell everybody what it is.
Well, and it's also available on basic cable because it's a CNN documentary. It's the story of Late Night. It's 6 episodes that recaps the last 70 years from an Indian on a test pattern to the current stars of Late Night and how the formats evolve. Here's a spoiler alert. Almost everyone owes a thank you note to Steve Allen. It goes from Carson to Leno to Letterman, even Cabot. Everyone either is interviewed in this thing or has been mined from existing footage. But I promise you, as much as you may know, you don't know the whole story. Some of it, as Carson would say, was weird wild. I did not see that coming. All of this because executive producer Bill Carter is the guy who has written about this topic several times. I can't wait to see the next one. I've seen 4. They run through the middle of June, and then they're available on demand. The story of Late Night gets one of my highest recommendations. Hi-yo!
Yeah, it's great. And I did, even though I knew most of this stuff, I did learn stuff. I mean, who knew that Faye Emerson was the first late night talk show host? Who even knew who Faye Emerson was? But as you said, Steve Allen, he kind of set a lot of the things in motion that a lot of, the standards that a lot of the talk shows were doing. And look, for a while, NBC was the only game in town that had, the Tonight Show. Now the field is completely overcrowded. What makes this great is all this archival footage that they have, showing all the clips from the Tonight Show with Steve Allen and with Jack Parr and with Carson and all the Letterman stuff. And they have present day interviews with Merrill Markoe and Jimmy Kimmel and the Conan O'Brien story about how he got this show when he never had any on-camera experience is fascinating. And even Conan says he couldn't, they show you the mock show that he did that never got broadcast. It was kind of an audition show. The whole thing is great. And I love the show. Perry, what do you think of it?
I absolutely love this. I didn't expect to be so riveted by a documentary series, but this is incredibly well made. I was fascinated by the material, which I definitely had a lot of learning to do in this department. But one of the most impressive elements about the way this whole thing was assembled is how they give it a binge watch feel to it, whether it's a commercial break or even jumping from one episode to the next. I couldn't stop. I needed to know the next part of the story. So that just speaks to how well this whole thing was assembled.
Yeah, it's funny. It's well done. It's informative with the rating feuds and the egos. Just a really, really well done documentary on demand on CNN. My pick is the French television series Call My Agent. It revolves around the lives of the people who work at a big talent agency in Paris. Each episode features a different real-life French movie star like Isabelle Huppert or Jean Reno, playing a parodied version of themselves. It's very funny as these high-powered agents have to put up with the crazy demands of these movie stars. It's a delicate balancing act as these agents have to keep the directors, producers, and studios happy, while at the same time doing almost anything to please their clients, who often behave like spoiled brat prima donnas. It's a great behind-the-scenes look at show business, but the real hook here are the personal lives of the agents themselves, as well as their assistants. They're a fascinating bunch of characters with engrossing storylines, making the entire series an addictive binge watch. Plus, here's some good news. It was supposed to end, but it's so popular that they just announced a feature-length movie and a new season. With great writing and sensational performances, Call My Agent is one of the best shows I've seen this year. Perry?
I'm glad you suggested this one because I really liked the beginning of it. I can't believe how quickly it just takes off because it's a rather large ensemble, but even with the limited amount I have seen, I feel like I could give very accurate descriptions and layered descriptions of each of them. So if that quality of the show continues, I have a feeling I'm going to keep watching all the way through to that movie you just mentioned.
Bill?
I'm really glad you picked this, Neil, because it's one of my favorites. People ask me for a pick, and I always tell them about Call My Agent. I will say that after 4 seasons, it's gotten a little formulaic when they dial some of these famous people in who tend to have a storyline that works in 3 parts. One is, I'm not going to do it. Second is, I might do it. And finally, by the end of the episode, I'll do it. Other than that, and how predictable it becomes, the characters are really nice, and I'm enjoying this a lot.
Well, that's about all the time we have, and with any luck, we've given you some movies and TV shows to help pass the time. And I want to thank Bill McCuddy, Perry Nemiroff, and Mike Sargent. I'm Neil Rosen. Join us next time on Talking Pictures.